It's Monday morning, so as always, here's an incomplete list of the things Donald Trump bitched about on Truth Social this weekend. Let's talk about the most consequential thing, which is him saying that House Republicans should go ahead and just release the Epstein files. Now, 3 hours later, he will call the entire Epstein thing a hoax, but in that same post where he says Republicans should release the Epstein files, he says that they have nothing to hide, but then says that they're just going to be going after Democrats like Bill Clinton and Larry Summers and all of them. And then, 3 hours later, he calls it a hoax. He called Thomas Massie Rand Paul Jr. and then pretends that he doesn't know who Thomas Massie got married to, and then pretends that him getting married has something to do with the reason that he's not winning in polls or whatever. And then says that his wife, Thomas Massie's wife, is soon going to find out that she married a loser. This is a president, again, just calling people losers. Okay, a lot, and I mean a lot of this weekend is going to be focused on Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't really know why exactly, other than she's saying that she has constituents who don't like the fact that their health insurance premiums are going to triple. And so she's actually giving some pushback, which is what a congressperson is supposed to do. Listen to their constituents, actually try and provide better things for their constituents. He's very mad that she's doing that. So he says he's withdrawing support of MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm just going to say MTG in here because he uses different ones. And then he says that all she does is complain. And then he says that he has 219 congressmen, 53 senators, 24 cabinet members, and 200 countries worth of people to talk to. So that's why he's not returning her phone calls. And apparently she's upset that he's not returning her phone calls. I don't know where he got those numbers because there's not 219 members of the House. There's not 53 members of the Senate. There's not 200 countries. In fact, there's 193 recognized by the UN, 195 that are non-observer states of the UN. So that would be 195 total. Don't know where he got 200 from. And he also called her far left. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be about MTG. He then posts someone else's Twitter post of them slamming MTG, and then he proceeds to use the next 4 posts to also just repost other people who are saying that her political career was over. And then he posts a random AI masked man holding a Trump 2028 sign. So not like a masked agent or anything, just like a masquerade mask. There was no words with this. He then puts out a Unaffordable Care Act all caps post, and that's the only thing that it says. He then calls her Marjorie Taylor Brown because, quote, green grass turns brown when it begins to rot. Then he calls her in that same post left. Then he calls her a rhino. And then later in this, he's going to call her a rhino again and then actually define what a rhino is, Republican in name only. And then he'll later in that same post call Thomas Massie Rand Paul Jr. again. And then right after that, he reposts his original unendorsement where he calls her a leftist and says that all she does is complain. And this takes you to the end of Friday night. Now let's get into Saturday. This was the entirety of this post. Marjorie Trader Greene is a disgrace to our great Republican Party. That was it. He then goes on and says that Seth Meyers has TDS, has no talent, and his show is a ratings disaster. And then he posts a bunch of random articles. And then he attacks Indiana Republican state senators and says that if they don't want to redistrict, then he's not going to endorse them. And then he calls all of the Democrat redistricting that's being done, like when California voted and their citizens agreed to the consent of the redistricting as the will of the people, as the mandate of the people, as he likes to say, he calls that illegal. And then in a different post, he calls her Marjorie Trader Brown, and then again clarifies that green grass turns brown when it begins to rot, and then says at the end of that, nobody cares about this traitor. Talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. He randomly endorses the Miami mayoral candidate, which I wouldn't normally bring up, but it's going to come up again later. Then he does 8 Twitter reposts in a row. All of them I didn't bother to read because they're usually just like, Obama's a traitor. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then he did 3 news articles / videos of himself. And then he reposted 6 more times, just things straight off of Twitter. And then he posts 3 more videos of himself just talking. And then he posts a picture that's just a picture of him. And it says the golden age and claims that trillions of dollars have been invested in our country, which is obviously not true. And then he re-endorses the Miami mayoral candidate in a separate tweet. But in this one, he says that he's good friends with some random UFC guys. So I guess that's why you should vote for this guy. And then he reposts his own truth from September 27th, where he claimed that the FBI put agents into the January 6th crowd, which is only a direct contradiction to everything he did because he then went on to pardon anyone who got any legal consequences as a result of January 6th. So, either he pardoned FBI agents or they weren't there. It's one or the other. And then he puts out a random grid of 16 Democrats and calls them all at the top Obama's Russia Hoax Treason Club. And then finally, he says he will endorse against any Indiana state senator who doesn't want to redistrict the state. Not that he won't endorse them, he will actively endorse against them, which again is just a term that he used and is not a real term.